Hello and welcome to this Cazena Cloud Lounge, Cloud Lake Lounge. My name is Hannah Smalltree with Cazena, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined by the Cazena team, by Philip from Bardis today, and looking forward to talking about today's theme, which is acceleration. How do you go fast? And this comes up in all of our aspects of life, right? Once we set a goal, how do we get there the most efficiently and the most quickly? So we've been thinking about this a lot for data and analytics leaders. And that's why I'm pleased to introduce our founder, Prat Mogay, talking about our latest program, CDAO Jumpstart. So Prat, could you share some more with us about CDAO Jumpstart?
Hi, Hannah. Great to be here. And yes, we're super excited about this new concept, new program called CDAO Jumpstart. Just so everyone is clear, CDAO stands for Chief Data and Analytics Officer. This is a new title that we are seeing in enterprises. It's at the intersection of the head of analytics on one side and the head of what used to be classically CDO. So they're combining in. And so this is a transformative title. We are talking to these CDOs who are responsible for transformation through analytics. And CDAO Jumpstart's a new program that Cazena is launching in partnership with Bardis today. So we are super excited about that. And the goal is to really, like you said, Hannah, accelerate CDAOs. That's the goal. So maybe in a few words, I'll explain that program. But the main concept here is CDAOs have the job to modernize enterprises. And really, analytics is the main function that modernizes these companies. And typically, it's a journey that takes several months, and the goal is to see how to accelerate that. So that's essentially where the CDAO Jumpstart program comes in. This is a 10 to 100 times acceleration in the conventional way CDOs would want to modernize. And so this is really about a 4-week program where we help CDOs jumpstart. So what makes this happen? Let's just take a minute to explain what's involved in a CDO Jumpstart program. There's really 4 aspects to it. The first aspect is CDOs typically are set up, they report into line of business, they have a small group of data scientists often. And so the starting point of this Jumpstart program is really helping them understand the use cases that have the most impact with the least amount of effort. And so that's what this white glove onboarding, which is the first step, is about, helping them scope use cases, set goals on the most important use case, and essentially get the team around that. The second aspect that the CDOs have to deal with is there's a lot of organizational friction today because there's IT, there's security and compliance, there's operational teams. CDOs need access to data, and that requires them to interface with all these different organizational units. There's friction in the process. There may not be alignment in terms of goals and timing, and that creates a lot of risk. So in the CDAO Jumpstart program, we have a unique delivery mechanism. It's based on a SaaS service, software as a service, which has all the requirements typically that the IT operations and security people require when they deal with sensitive data for analytics. And so the nice thing here is that the CDOs don't have to deal with each of these requirements. They're all built into this program, into this platform. The third aspect of this is the platform for analytics itself is all built into this program. It's called the Instant Data Lake. And it gives you a centralized environment where you can bring in the data. It's all hosted securely. You can, after you ingest this data, you can start to do analytics. And that brings me to the fourth leg of this program, which is data prep. In many cases, CDAOs and their data scientists don't have the expertise around data prep or data engineering, where they can bring in multiple data sources and munch them, harmonize them, come up with data models, and get them in a state where it's ready for analytics. That's what this data prep for analytics stage does as the fourth part of this program. So as you can see, these are the 4 key blocks. The whole idea is, if you're a CDAO, we essentially come and help you. We team up with you think of this program as being an extension of your team. But in very short order, within 4 weeks, the goal here is we help identify the use case through that onboarding stage I talked about. We help ingest the right data sources, help your teams or augment your teams to data prep, and then really help your teams do self-service analytics, ML, so that you can get an outcome. And that's this flywheel, which if you can do this really quickly, the nice thing is you can rinse and repeat this for multiple use cases across different data sources. So we encourage CDAOs to reach out and become part of this program, because we've seen many successful examples of CDAOs and enterprises do this. And that's why I'm excited to even invite Philip from Bardes and Lovan Chetty from Cazena, because both of them have seen this hands-on. And so that's the program, Hannah, that we are launching today.
So excited to welcome Philip Duplessis from Bardes to the conversation and Lovan Chetty from Cazena. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Thank you for having us, Hannah, and nice setup there, Pratt. Thank you.
So Philip, I have 2 questions for you, and maybe through questions you can help introduce this. The first question is, as I talked about in this Jumpstart program, you want to help CDAOs identify a use case, bring the data in, and we help them essentially get that data ready for analytics. On the use case front, I often get this question from CDAOs. We're looking at a bunch of use cases, and they're thinking about how to order these use cases so that gives them the maximum visibility with least amount of effort. You are experts at these use cases. You've seen these patterns at Bardes. Maybe you can share how they should go about thinking about the use case problem.
Thank you, Pratt. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a little bit of our secret sauce, but really it's quite simple. I think, one of the things that you really want to focus on, especially with this Jumpstart program, is really high impact, high visibility use cases, something where you can take that thin slice of data and really make a massive impact. There's those options that have no impact, no effort, don't even bother, right? And there's the ones that are a lot of effort, no impact, don't even go there. But in the top left-hand corner are examples of many, many use cases that are discrete enough that in 3 to 4 weeks we can show tangible ROI and really deliver on the promise that this is worth taking further. And then it can migrate into the top right-hand box. It can be, we can expand the platform. The platform is already built to scale. We can bring in more data sources and more and do some more work and more modeling on the data to make even more impact. But really the key thing is choosing those very careful use cases and knowing that with something tangible in your hands, you're going to have some ROI, and that's really the goal of the process. And I think that first part of your circle, that whiteboarding exercise, that's where we all agree on what does that look like, what is that particular use case, and can we identify those few data sources that might support that use case. And then with the Cazena platform, it's relative, we're hours away from getting to work.
That's great. Another thing that comes up often in these conversations, Philip, is data prep, right? We've heard this, right? Data scientists, that's the long pole in actually a data science outcome.
Yes.
Can you also share your perspectives on that? You use a word I like a lot. It's the thin slice. So if you can explain what that means, and this idea that you don't need hundreds of data sources. Typically, it's a few data sources. Being careful and disciplined about that, that would be great.
Exactly, and that's a good point. So really, the use case often drives the selection of data sources, and not just the data sources, but even the data and the columns within those particular tables in the various databases. So spending a little bit of time up front, really being very particular about that that use case can really help you narrow the amount of data that you might think often. We often see that people bring in way too much data into those environments. They spend more time than they really need to do on the data engineering and data prep, because it ultimately doesn't impact that final use case. So that's where the where the methodology and the secret sauce really sits. But then, of course, the tooling available in the Cazena platform is already provided, right? So folks you already have people that are good at Python. There's capabilities there to use some of the tooling that's already available. If they want to use other tooling, the Cazena platform provides a variety of tools which make that whole process become less challenging.
That's excellent. I think one concept, Philip, that you should also reinforce, because I think many CDOs, they clearly want to get going fast, but they're also thinking about how to scale these things across many use cases. And so this whole idea is like that flywheel is not just about initially getting going, but it's about doing things at scale, whether it's across use cases, across data sources, right? If you can talk about it, I think we have a slide on that idea of how this Jumpstart concept can radically accelerate. And in particular on this chart, there are 3 colors that the viewers will see. The blue is really about building the platforms and tooling. The green's about getting a Jumpstart-like outcome, and then orange is really the productionizing of this. Conventionally, these have all been serial, right, Philip? And so that's led to a very long cycle. And when you have a long cycle time, all your teams are dedicated. You can only do these serially, and so you get very in terms of the outcomes.
Delayed gratification, absolutely.
and so this is all about the Jumpstart's all about speeding that up, but it's not just about the speed up of that first unit. Gives you a non-linear speed up because you can now do this much faster. So maybe you can talk about that a bit, Philip.
Absolutely. And if you notice, those green blocks are not necessarily smaller on the bottom than they are on the top. The real value sits in the green blocks, right? So the building the infrastructure and the tools takes a tremendous amount of time doing it yourself. The actual productionizing also takes a lot of time to harden that environment and all that you get out of the box. So now these CDAOs are now able to concentrate on the real value, which is that green block and the actual building of the use case and finding that ROI. And to your point, now in the same time frame, you've got more green blocks stacked next to each other. And that's what we talk about, taking a thin slice and then appending adjacent use cases to that. Because what happens is there becomes this, as you talk about a flywheel, and then what happens is you got this economies of scale start to happen where you on your second or third use case, you find that 80% of the data is already there. It's already being used. It's already being cleansed. So now the incremental lift for that third, fourth, fifth, sixth use case becomes much smaller each time. And this is a huge accelerator for overall business value.
I was actually curious. I love talking about this. And one of my favorite jobs here at Cazena is when I get to talk with customers about their stories and the different use cases that they have done. So Levan, you spend a lot of time with our customers, Levan Chetty, solution architect with Cazena. Could you talk a little bit more about one of our favorite customers, CWT, and how they've been able to really make this flywheel work for them and put lots of use cases out?
Sure. I mean, I think that they're a poster child for this particular situation because, like Philip said, they started really small, right? They realized that they had some really interesting data that they did not exploit. They used it, but they didn't exploit it. But their initial hires were just a few people who could do advanced analytics, right? So how do you enable just a very small team of advanced analysts to do all of these things? You have to be able to give them a set of tools that they can work with, but then you also need to give them an environment where they can put real data in to do the analysis, right? And that becomes the hard part from a security perspective because CWT, like most other companies, has highly sensitive data, so you can't just play roughshod with that data, right? So they were able to reduce all the friction by getting a production ready data lake immediately. They were able to move in data in the first week and then and then start to analyze. And that, grew from the initial 2 analysts, to where they are today, where there's probably about just under 100 people that do direct manipulation of data, and then hundreds of people that are accessing the outcomes, via various, visualization tools or applications. I think the most interesting thing is that they've even been able to produce some data products that they now sell, right? So they've found enough value in that data that this environment is now a revenue generator.
I think the one point, one point I would add to what Lovan was saying is the tools and the technologies and all of these are really important, but as important is the organizational friction, being able to figure out how to fix that. CWT is not a startup, it's a large company, hundreds of years old, and a leader in their space. And so they have defined processes across security and IT, and so again, the delivery mechanism being a SaaS model with all the production requirements being built into this delivery mechanism helped the CIO, helped the CISO bless this process. And I think that's the other thing that I would encourage all the CDOs who are thinking about how to get going. If you're in a large company and you're stuck behind meetings and stuck behind requirements from different groups, it feels daunting. And so we are happy to have you talk to customers and get inspiration from them or get some best practices from them that you can use. But this was a great example. Thanks for sharing that, Lovan.
And I think we have another one in manufacturing that's interesting for kind of more scale related reasons. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's another interesting example because this, I think like most manufacturing organizations, they run on really, really thin margins, right? And thin margins usually result in thin teams as well. So this is an organization that does not have an extremely large, IT support organization, and the problem that they ended up with is they're modernizing their production lines. They're starting to put sensors and devices as a part of their processes. So there's now suddenly this stream, this flood of data that's coming in from places where they never used to come in before, right? You've got all of these pieces of, of equipment that are now all devices that are generating data. So the problem that they had to solve firstly was, where does all of this stuff go, right? They had this very controlled process of all of our data lived in databases, right? And they could decide when they could pull data out of a database or put data into a database. But now that you've got all of these devices scattered all over the place, right, the device decides when it's going to send you data. And so, so the first problem was, how do I corral all of this new data? And then all of these data comes in weird formats, right? Because you're buying the sensors that go onto these devices. So you now can't control, my data is going to come in exactly a format that I understand. So you also then need a whole range of capabilities to be able to take, this huge variety of formats and start to do some of the, what Philip was talking about, where you're doing data wrangling, you're doing data engineering to conform that so that someone can eventually start to do analysis on it. And that, that data ended up being, an order of magnitude more than, all of the structured data that they had within the organization. So you have to fundamentally rethink how you're going to approach problems like that. And that was a similar scenario, right, where they were able to there just focus on how do I plug all of my sensors into my data lake, because the data lake was already there, right? It had all the capabilities to be able to accept those streams, right? So they were able to focus on on those higher value tasks that Philip was alluding to, rather than trying to figure out, well, how do I get a reliable piece of infrastructure that's going to support streams coming from multiple places at any point in time.
Wow. So to go back, and we've touched on this a few times as we talk about Jumpstart and talk about some of these different use cases. And for people who are just getting started with their data and analytics program, or they're kind of a chief data and analytics officer that's trying to kind of restart a program, what makes an ideal first use case? I heard Philip talk a bit about scoping it and maybe limiting data sets. And so I guess I'll pick on you again, Philip. What makes an ideal first use case or something, for Jumpstart for a chief data and analytics officer?
So again, of course, thank you, Hannah. It really depends on the business and the industry, but there are use cases that keep the executives up at night, right? There's high value, high importance, high impact, high visibility projects that because of this organizational friction and the complexity around the pieces that are not necessarily related to solving the problem from a data and modeling and analytics point of view, have been too difficult to touch. And those are the ones we want to look for. We call that low effort, but low effort really means that you're not dealing with all the other peripheral complexity, and you're really focused on the ability to get that data, centralize that data in an environment that already has all the tooling, right? We're not talking about, additional licensing and all that type of stuff. We're really provide our data scientists with the tooling they're familiar with and comfortable with, and what they're already using in a secure environment that's enabled by easy access through single sign-on. And as a result of that, they can get right to work, right? So think about what you can achieve in 4 weeks if you break that down into two-week sprints or 4 one-week sprints. If that's all you focused on in that time period, you're going to achieve a lot of what essentially is the money shot. It's the work that's related to driving that ROI. And that's why I encourage folks to really take a second look at this Jumpstart program. 4 weeks is a long time if all you're focusing on is delivering value on that very thin slice. So I don't have any advice other than, we know those use cases are out there. We're not trying to solve world hunger, but at the same time, any one of those examples that I had on that little scatter plot are great kind of, use cases. A lot of marketing use cases. Lovan talked about IoT and sensor data. Just getting all that in one place just is and what you can do once a data scientist can find that kind of data and start doing anomaly detection and that. Those are things that for most part are out of reach for most people, and yet we can show tangible benefits in 2, 3, 4 weeks of effort.
Awesome. And now, Prat, we have the Cazena.com/jumpstart page. We have a form on that page where you can get more information from us. Any sort of final advice or inspiration for a data leader that's curious about Jumpstart or sort of thinking about how they can get started and really make an impact with their programs?
I'd say don't waste a minute. Like Philip said, every minute counts. I think in your role or position as a CDAO, I think that's there's a tremendous responsibility, but it's a hard job. And so what you need are superpowers that enable you. And this is one of those superpowers, I think, because you really want to focus, like Philip said, on the happy path. And so these 4 weeks happen if you have the right teams on your side and the right capabilities. And this is essentially a culmination of CDAO, right partners, and the right technology all coming together. So we're very excited, and so I'd sort of say reach out, and we are here to help. And this is going live today. So super excited.
So we are all excited, and because we're all at home and we don't get to like all go together in the caf, I'd love us all on the call. I think Sally, you're out there. I forgot to introduce you. Sally's here, taking your questions and sending resources. But we brought our Cazena mugs so that we could do a toast to our new Jumpstart program. And just before this call, as I am wont to do, I got a little creative. It's not a song yet. That'll be another lounge. We'll play the ukulele. Today, raise your glass. We celebrate the launch of Chief Data and Analytics Officer Jumpstart. Let us be called to action by top-line impact, stories of enterprise transformation, and multi-digit ROI. And let us never forget the failed DIY projects, the endless pilots and technical complexities that have brought us here today, for they have inspired our development team. So please raise your mugs and join me in a celebration of Chief Data and Analytics Officer Jumpstart Program and toast to data leaders everywhere. May your data lakes be instant, your analytics impactful, and your outcomes transformational. Cheers.
Oh, well done, Hannah. Great.
Thank you. Sorry, Philip doesn't have a mug. We got to fix that.
That's
So
right.
for appearing here on our Cazena Lounge today, I think that we could figure out how to send him a mug to his home. Thank you so much, Philip Duplessis from Bardes. Thank you, Levan Chetty from Cazena, Prat Moge from Cazena, Sally Cooper behind the scenes, keeping our webinars up and running. We do have another Cloud Lounge coming up and some really exciting guests on it. I'm going to see if I can share my screen again. So coming up in our next Cloud Lounge, we're talking about secrets to Chief Data and Analytics Officer success. You sense a theme here. And we'll have a panel with some experts on it. We'll also be hearing from 451 Research's Matt Aslett, an industry analyst who covers our space. So again, invite you to learn more about Jumpstart, share it with your friends, share it on social media, and then come back and visit us here in the Cazena Lounge anytime. So for Cazena, I am Hannah Smalltree signing off from the Cazena Lounge. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Hannah.
Bye.
Have a great day.